Welcome back, everybody, to Unconditional Surrender in Europe, game designed by Salvatore Vasta, published by GMT Games. This is Dec39. This is a beginning of a new game against the same opponent that I lost as the Germans against in the German Diplomatic Disaster series. We've switched sides. We've kept all the rules essentially the same. And we'll just go ahead and get right on into it. You will understand the title of the series when we get there at about probably video 4 or 5. Anyway, onwards. So we play with variable entry, so the very first thing the Germans have to do is roll for a whole stack of units, which is what he's doing now. And this is when his units will come in, so he's just going to place them all on the turn track. And then he declares war on Poland, which is, he's going west first. Declared war on the Western Axis, Western allies, and then declared war on Poland. And we've done the economies. First thing he does, he moves the first army up here with strategic movement. The West picks up the unit that's in the mountains on the road to Lvov and will strategically move it to there. Something I never really kind of realized with the Poles is they can use the Western strategic move marker to try and plug up the gap a bit. It's not much of a plug, but at least it's one more unit. And the Soviets, I don't think, had one. So here we go. The Germans are attacking Poland this way. He moves away from 2434. Let's zoom in a bit. Maybe a little better picture for you guys. And I think we're going to combat commitment. I decided I was going to save it for later combats, hopefully. He puts in a sortie, sets his marker to +4, rolled a 5, I rolled a 6, so I held for a turn. And he takes another sortie and rolls an 8, 4 + 4. I rolled a 5, so I'm retreated, so I retreat to there. And then he moved there. Thought about it and said, no, I'll just take this and then attack across the river. And he didn't use his airplane this time, and he rolled a 1, I rolled a 2, so nothing happened. So now he moves the other infantry up. And attacks. We're in combat commitment again. We both committed. So he's going to throw another airplane. I throw my ground support. So he rolled a grand total of an 8. I rolled a 4, so I'm flipped. And comes back in 4 turns. And what are we doing now? So I'm at -2 and he's at +4. No, he chose not to put in his airplane and I didn't put anything in. He rolled a 5 + 2 is a 7, and at -2, it's guaranteed. It doesn't really matter if I roll or not. So he had he threw in an airplane and I did not, so he eliminated the garrison. Then he activated the infantry to take on Posen at and we both committed. So I used up my last ground support. And he is +5 to my +1. He rolled a 7. I rolled a 5, so I held for a turn. And again, 4 turns for the marker. And now he uses another airplane. So he gets an 8 to my 6. So now he goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Attacks me at +6 by throwing in an airplane. Gets 10 to my 4, which is a retreat. Yes, 10 to my 4. I'm flipped and retreated. So Poland's holding up fairly well here. Showing him my choices for retreats, and I thought going there was better because it would cost him 4 movement points, which he doesn't have to count to keep continuing in the attack. So then he activates the 2nd Panzer and attacks Lodz with a 12 to a 4. 12 to a 4. This is a DD, so I flip myself and retreat into the city across the river. Takes the hex. And then he attacks. It's 4 plus an airplane is 6 minus 2. Should be at 4. There he is, +4. Oh no, I don't think he used an airplane. May have not used an airplane here. He rolled a 7. I rolled a 4, so I retreated. Takes Lodz. And then he attacks again, but I'm not sure exactly where. He used an airplane to attack at +6. He rolled a 9. I rolled a 2. Flipped and retreated. Took the hex. Now he can attack again. And a 6 to a 3 is a retreat again. He chooses not to take that hex. Moves up his infantry to and attacks into Posen. With an airplane so that he's +5 to my 0, and he rolls an 11 to a 2, so it's eliminated. And he takes it. And with 3 movement points left, he moves out of Posen into here and attacks this infantry. Using another airplane. Or no, he didn't need to use an airplane because I was isolated, so +4 with an 8 at -2, I'm automatically eliminated because I can't retreat. And he takes the hex. So he's taken 2, 4, 6, and 7, 8. He's taken out 9, so I'm down to 3 will points. It's 1, 2. Thought about it. 1. Oop, I'm going backwards, sorry. Uses up his airplane there. And attacks me at +3 to 0. He rolled a 4 to my 1, so I'm forced to retreat. So he takes the city. And I'm down to 2 will points. And I think he attacked before I got to set his modifier back down because airplane couldn't reach. And then he was done because he didn't have anything left he could do. So Poland held out. Poland is now at 1 will point, and it held out till October. So we go into operations for the West. This is fairly standard. Soviets just kind of do some dancing. Now we're into axis replacements. And we go to the West's replacements, which basically reset my fleets. And then I do the poles, since I have the points, to go ahead and replace that guy in Warsaw. And so now we're into the diplomacy phase. He pulls a no event. The UK goes ahead and pulls a political success, and they will actually put their pro marker in Greece. And the Soviets, what did they do? And they pulled a no event, so not good. And then we go into, this is just me moving my dead poles down into the mobilization box. The Germans got an infantry off the turn track. And then he rolled a 6-2-4 and a 2 in the, where is it? There it is. And a 2 in October is fair in the mild zone. So he got fair again in Poland, which was very, very annoying, to say the least. So, might as well leave that up because that's going to be next. So, he declares war on Denmark. And then we were trying to figure out where was the best place to put the Danes. I thought maybe there might be better. And then we go into economies, which we've done. There's no strategic warfare, so he strategically moves. Infantry. I strategically moved the French out of will. And the Russians move their airplane back to deep inside Russia. And then he activates First Army. flew his airplane up here from the west. Goes before he activates the army, then he goes 1 and attacks. And I'm -2, and he's +4. He rolls a 6. I rolled a 1, -2, so I'm eliminated. So that was 3 movement points, 4, 5, 6. And I think he thought about this, and he goes, wait a minute. I really don't want the French or the British sitting in Copenhagen, because that's on much harder thing for him to take back. So instead he went 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And ends his turn there. Then he got his 2 points of willpower and got a unit into the eliminated box. Put a pro marker in Diplomacy Cup, and he takes mine out of Greece, which is what he wanted to do. Now he'll come over here to finish off Poland. And here we go. Poland. Oh, we noticed that he had an airplane that he had set up in the wrong hex. He had it not on a rail line. So this armor goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then 6, 7. And that airplane flies a sortie so that he's +6 to my -2. And he attacks with a 7, and I roll a 1, so I'm eliminated. Takes the hex, still has some movement points left, so he goes into the east. And then this armored unit is 1, 2, 3, 4, and 6. So he takes my last 2 will points. So now Poland is conquered, so we get rid of the Poles. And he places a pro axis marker in Romania. Puts another one into the cup. Gets the Polish corridor ceded to him. And then because he's in the Soviet Pact area, with the conquest of Poland, he has to move those things out of the Soviet Eastern Pact side. So he does, and they become flying over here to the west. So both armors are just suddenly back on the Western Front. And then he moves up here. This guy moves up there. Make sure that he takes Warsaw. And I think he moves... This guy starts heading home. And... he moves that army. Now this is a legal move because he's still on the border with Poland. Doesn't have to stay actually in Poland. So he's getting 1 hex closer, but he can't leave that border because home defense rules. So I didn't understand why he bothered moving it there. And then he moves this guy into there. And he was done. So I moved up my aircraft. I think I was just checking to make sure I could attack him. So I'm attacking him at he's +2 and I'm 0. Just trying to inflict some sorties. I rolled a 1. Actually, he rolled a 1. I rolled a 2. So we each took 1. I went one more time. I rolled a 1. He rolled a 1. So now we're up to 2 each. So I went ahead and said, let's go. Rolled a 1 and he rolled a 6. So he knocked me out, but I did take him up to 3 sorties. It was a vain little thing to do, but so I move that infantry into there, into Calais, and I bring up the French fleet and supply the British with the French. And now we're doing his replacements. So he's resetting his aircraft. Reset the French aircraft and the fleets. And he built his infantry in Bremen. Excuse me. Oh, I blew right by diplomacy. So, he pulls an area seized. So before he can get it, I take Bessarabia. The Western Allies pulled a no event, and then the Russians put a no event and the area seized back in the cup. And they should have Bessarabia on their card. Double check, make sure I did that right. Yes, I have Eastern Poland now and Bessarabia. So, 2 out of 6. And September 39 to November of 1939. So, this time with the weather die roll, we have to use the fair line of October, so it's going to be poor weather at least. So we go into weather of the next turn. He gets a 631. So when you look at the November fair line, that's severe, poor, and poor. Or no, it was in poor line on the Mediterranean one, so it becomes actually a fair weather in Mediterranean. Okay. And in the severe line for cold, 6 was still severe. So we do that. We're in the declaration of war phase. He didn't do any. Do production. Pretty straightforward. And let's see, we're doing Russian strategic move. Move my airplane up to Belaluki. He moves his. These are his moves. He's moving up to the front line, getting ready for the West invasion. Takes Aalborg. I chose not to try and put anything in there because I didn't see the point. And he flies his airplane back down to the south. Moves an infantry out because he's got something to build. And Western Allies just did supply. Russians just moving up to claim their territory, and then we go into no supply phase, none of that. We're doing Axis replenishment. And Western replenishment. And I think we are done. He builds his garrison. The Russians should have infantry they build. They build it in Ternate. And, oh, I blew right by the diplomacy again. So the Axis pulled a pro-Axis marker. And so they put it down here in Italy. The West pulled a no event. The Soviets pulled and got a pro-Axis marker. Got it out of the cup. So, turn moves December 39. Yep, we're in December of 1939 now. He gets a couple more infantry. Then we roll the weather. The weather is 2-5. So poor, severe, poor. So no early invasion of the West this time. That's the weather phase. We don't need all these things up here. Okay. And I don't think much of anything happens here. We're just doing the productions. Nothing changes there. He moves an infantry into there. And then we're into the West doing their supply. The Russians, I think, move a couple of armies around, and other than that, they're done. Now we go into his replenishment. Yeah, he's just doing some replenishment here, flipping over his infantry and stuff. I replenish the West, and we're done with that. And he mobilizes infantry, 2 infantry units. And I think that's it. Yeah, I think we're in the diplomacy phase again. And the Axis pull a no event. Western Allies get a no event. And the Russians pulled an area seized. This was probably a mistake on my part. I probably should have, with the Russians, put 2 more no events in there because the cup's getting awful thin on bad things. So they get an army and a couple of points, and they go ahead and take Karelia. So a pro marker goes into Helsinki. And then we're at end of turn phase, which just him. He gets his airdrop and his surprise attack marker, both in the same turn. January. And that was the end of 1939. So there you have kind of a fairly traditional start. He got some lucky weather, so he was able to get rid of my pro marker in Greece by taking out Denmark, which is what you do if they have a pro marker on the board and you have a way to go get Denmark. That's its most useful thing besides putting a pro marker in the cup for you. And he's building up in the west, ready to come after me. So, fairly standard, straightforward, 1939. Nothing too outrageous. The Poles hung on for a turn, but then Fairweather made sure that they wouldn't hang on for another. Even without that, I think he would have been able to mount a decent rolling assault to take out Warsaw or something. So, odds were against it. And then we have the weather set up for next turn 353. So, when we pick up next time, that'll be the weather. As always, I'm Dren608. If you like my videos, please subscribe. Hit that like button so that the algorithms in YouTube will keep these things up for people to find. And until we meet again, stay safe and bye-bye.